Welcome to Bucket List Living with Brad Norwood. I'm your host, Brad Norwood. We're back for another episode. One of my favorite people on LinkedIn. No offense to anybody else, but we've got a great story today. I want to introduce to you the director of operations for Buc-ee's convenience stores. That's Buc-ee's with a Y. He's also the guy in charge of all the smile files, hashtag smile files on LinkedIn. And he is the new host of the LinkedIn Live podcast, Purposeful Living, Mr. Jason Ricks. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Wow. Thanks for that introduction, Brad. And I am super pumped and super thrilled to be back with you. As always, our time together is always, it just always spurs great ideas and challenging each other as we continue through our journey in life. So it's great to be with you.
Yeah, you too, man. So, Jason and I, a little backstory here. Jason and I met through LinkedIn about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. I was thinking about that this morning, Jay, because I think I called you in February to kind of recruit you, engage your interest in a trip to the Masters a couple of years ago. So it's been almost 2 years that we've been connected. And man, what a friendship we have formed. I think we might be some of the best proof out there that really LinkedIn can be taken offline. And yet we've yet to meet in person. Freaking
Right.
COVID has stopped us from traveling. We're not too far from each other. You're in Omaha. I'm in Springdale, Arkansas. We're only about 6 hours apart. And I promise if my Omahawks get back there, damn sure coming to see you, but we're going to see you before then. But here's the story, folks. Jason Ricks has an incredible, powerful story. And so we're going to dive right into this, Jason. I want you to give everybody your backstory. Now, you're known as a leader in your industry, not only in the convenience world itself, but in the world that you've created within Buc-ee's. I want you to talk about your backstory with Buc-ee's convenience store and your leadership opportunity.
Yeah. So, it's funny because I talk to a lot of young folks, and I think a lot of people out there, they just, even some people that are, later in their 20s, early 30s, they just think that someone like myself, being a director of operations, vice president of operation of a company, that we're just kind of born that way, right? And it doesn't happen like that. So you kind of, through your life, you gain experiences. So I go back to when I was a kid. I was 13 years old. That's how I kind of got started in the retail space, Brad. And I worked for my dad. He ran a Sherwin's paint store in Nacogdoches, Texas. And he had lost a guy, had a major heart attack. He was in a college town, couldn't get somebody hired, and he said, "Son, you're going to work." So I spent the entire summer working for him, stacking cans and tint and paint. And he taught me to drive a forklift, which I thank the Lord I didn't tear down the building with that, because driving a forklift with a big long roll of carpet on it is an experience. But and I worked for him for about 3 years, and I just got to a point where I wanted to be on my own. So I took a job at a grocery store, and it was one of the best experiences of my life because, I was 16. I started as a bagger. I did that for about 3 weeks, got promoted, became a dairy guy. I did that for about 2 months, then became part of the stock crew. Next thing you know, I'm leading the stock crew, of 16, 17 years old, and I'm leading grown guys, and I think I learned a lot during that time and about what hustle and getting in there with them and what leadership was. And I just remember trying to emulate my dad. How would my dad lead? And from there, it kind of went to, I went to the Air Force, and I was in the Air Force for 6 years. And, it was a really hard time. I was gone a lot. So there would be times where I would get on a plane, go over there for 6 months, come home for 3 months, just enough time to get some things taken care of. And then I was on a plane again. And I was in during 9/11. So I was actually here at Offutt Air Force Base on 9/11 when George Bush flew in. And, I was in the intelligence world. So I immediately went into action, and I was gone within a week or two of that happening. We were sent overseas, but and after the ops tempo was just so great where it was just gone all the time. And I decided to get out. I had a young son at the time, and I was married, and I thought, our marriage was going south, and I thought getting out would save it. ended up it didn't. And that divorce, really, really hurt me a lot, both emotionally and financially. I started over, at one point there, had an air mattress, a TV, and some clothes to my name, and that's it. Car got repoed. Brad, when you talk about at the low, that's probably one of the lowest points of my entire life. And I'll never forget how I felt. And on that mattress one night, I made a promise to God that if he provided the path, I'd do the work. And I'd bring him the glory from it. And that's kind of where it all started. And I eventually got the job with Kroger convenience stores. I worked for them for on and off for about 12 to 13 years. And, started as a store manager, then, ran 2 different stores, ran multiple districts for them, went out to Ohio. And that's a story of itself. But, the company was selling, there was a lot of stuff going on, ended up leaving Kroger, and that's how I ended up at Buc-ee's. And, I've been here at Buc-ee's now for 4.5 years. So the moral of that story is no matter what happens, you can overcome, and it's never too late to reset or to find your purpose.
Amen, man. Amen. And the dedication that you made, even though it might have been in a plea form, that dedication you made to say, God, I'll bring you the glory. Show me the path, and I'll bring you the glory. I've known you obviously since that point, and I can tell you that's one of the first things I notice about you is everything that you do. People always are praising you, but you humbly give it right back to him. I'm proud of you for that, and it's a great attribute that you have about you. So, Jason, you work for Buc-ee's, and I know that people in the South, especially here in Arkansas, because we travel south, right? We love to go to the beach and everything else in Texas and all that. When they hear Buc-ee's, they think of the big beaver with the teeth. But we're done talking about that guy. This is Buc-ee's with a Y. Tell us about your Buc-ee's.
Yeah, so it's funny because both companies were started within about a year of each other, and both founders. The company name is based upon the founder's nickname. So the Buc-ee with the beaver and us. Here in Buc-ee's, the Buc-ee's I work for was started here in Omaha, Nebraska, by a guy named Steve Buchanan. He opened one little shop at 50th and Dodge. It's kind of like right in the middle of town. And it was a struggling, and truth is they were about to shut the whole thing down, and the owner sold it to Steve, just to get out. And Amico signed off and allowed Steve to operate, and he started building. And then, within a couple of years, he had a second location and then a third location. And then he started picking up. And at first, he was in the first 3 stores, and they still exist today, are mechanic shops. So they actually work on vehicles there. They do oil changes, that kind of stuff. They're called Buchanan Service Centers. And he started buying some smaller operators that wanted to get out of the convenience industry. And so that's how he kind of built his empire here in Omaha. Was he would pick up 2, 3, 4 stores at a time, go in, clean them up, turn them around, make them profitable. Then he would facelift them. And I mean, it's really truly one of the greatest American dream stories you could ever imagine. I mean, I'm pretty honored to have been involved with the Buc-ee's story.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you can talk about it. I know there's going to be a change coming with that Buc-ee's. Is that something you can talk about on the show? Because that is
Yeah,
part of the dream. He's now going to bring that full circle, right? Every
yeah,
business owner goes into business to either pass it on or to sell it, and we've got development with Buc-ee's now.
yeah. So, after, considering how old his kids are and just kind of looking at the landscape, Steve did decide to move in the direction of selling the business to Casey's. That's out there. That's pretty public information. And I just think he was ready to go and do something else and focus on other things, and watch his kids grow up. So I support him in that. And sure, I'm going to miss what we've built together in the last few years, especially. I think we've really built a really special culture here at Buc-ee's. But what I hang my hat on is that we have impacted a lot of lives in that time frame, and those lives will forever be changed. And whether it's Casey's or whatever happens, no one could take that away. So that's what I'm hanging my hat on.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, as a service provider, and you say that together you and Stephen Buchanan Energy all together have impacted thousands of lives. As a convenience store, people listening might think, well, they've impacted people that come in and get gas and come in and buy coffee and donuts, candy bars, whatever. But really, you've impacted, probably the greatest impact has been on your employees. And that speaks highly of your leadership and the leadership you come from, but your leadership as well, Jason. Talk about your leadership role in operations and the impact that you've got on your employees.
Yeah, yeah. So, the greatest responsibility that I have is to the employees of this organization. When people say, "Oh, you're the guy that makes all the decisions," no, I work for everyone that works for this organization. So my job is to remove roadblocks, to help provide the support and the guidance and the teachings that they need to be successful. Some of the greatest satisfaction I get out of my job is promoting that person, finding that diamond that no one else sees as a diamond that's a cashier, and saying, you know what, that person is really good. So I'm going to teach them how to lead a second shift and become an assistant kind of a manager. And then, you know what? Now you know all the ropes. Now I'm going to teach you what you need to do to be a store manager, and then to give that person a key, because you're talking about taking someone who's making, say, 11, 12 bucks an hour to now making 40, 50,000 a year. And that's powerful. That's
Yeah.
moving someone's life forward. And all those differences are why I do what I do. That is 95% of satisfaction I get out of the job, is that you can impact lives positively and that you can change people's lives. And, no one will ever be able to, I often tell people, one of the hallmarks I really believe this, is that, 10 years from now, no one is going to remember what we made for EBITDA in 2019, but I will tell you exactly what people remember. All those people we promoted in 2019 will remember they got promoted in 2019 and that Jason believed in them and gave them an opportunity. No one will ever forget that. And so to me, if you look at that in a very visionary type of format, that tells you right there what's important. The people
Hmm.
side of the business is what's important. Businesses were created to serve people. So when you go back in time, even back to blacksmiths and the origin of business, right? It was designed to serve people, to help people with things that they needed. So there were blacksmiths that created nails, they created horseshoes so that people could take care of their horses and take care of their houses. Yes, they got traded in other things, and in money, so that they could live, right? But the purpose of the business wasn't to grow this like enormous wealth. It was to provide a service and to be useful in the community. And I think that we need to get back to that, to where we look at business not just from the financial gains of what it does, but for what it adds and value to the communities that they serve.
Yeah, that's amazing. I had David Meerman Scott on last week, who wrote the book Fanocracy, and he talked very similar along the same lines of that, about creating fans of your business, but also having your business to create fans, right? And within. And so I know you do that very, very well there at Buc-ee's, both creating fans that come, the only place they'll come to stop and get their coffees, Buc-ee's, or get their gas is Buc-ee's, but also you create fans within. Now, you do this in a very unique way. One of the tools I know of that you use that's very unique, and you've got a hashtag that you've claimed on LinkedIn called the Smile Files. Tell us what the Smile Files, hashtag Smile Files, tell us what those are all about.
Yeah. So, I guess it started about, I don't know what, about a year and a half ago. I just wanted to tell the story of what I see out and about on a daily basis. And it happens all the time, where people will stop me, or people will interact with me, and they just have these great smiles, and it's just these awesome stories. And so I said, when people think about going to a convenience store, I think they think about dirty old gas stations from back in the 80s and 90s, and that it's this, oh, if you don't go to school, you're going to be a gas station guy, right? Like, that's one of the stigmatisms that's out there, right? And I'm trying to break that, because I want people to understand that running a convenience store is a very complex it's a complex job and it's not easy. And my people, they put in a lot of hours. They work really hard, and they have to deal with the greatest part of society and the worst part of society.
Hmm.
And so the Smile Files was my way to recognize my team and to tell fun stories that I felt like people on LinkedIn would find interesting and uplifting. I mean, like today is a great example. It was awesome. So I wish I would have taken the picture, but I didn't. I met a young lady named Tara who's been following me on LinkedIn. I'm in line for coffee. I'm supposed to meet another gentleman for coffee. I'm in line for my coffee, and this lady literally turns around and goes, I don't want to be weird, but is your name Jason? I'm like, yeah, I'm Jason. She goes, Jason Ricks, right? And I'm like, yes, ma'am. She goes, well, I just want you to know I follow you on LinkedIn and I see all your Smile Files and I just love it so very much. And so I bought her a coffee, and, we chatted for just a moment or two. And it was just, it was a serendipitous moment. It was a reminder to myself that those things do impact more than what I probably realized, because I don't do it. I'm not doing it for ego or for me. I'm literally doing all this because I want to impact as many people as possible, so that way they leave feeling uplifted. I just don't feel there's enough in our society right now that is uplifting and makes people feel good. And the more people that I can do that for, that's how I think that I want my legacy to be.
Right. Yeah. You talk about legacy. In fact, we have that in the My Bucket List Life Plan. That's what the L stands for, is leaving a legacy. And so expand on that, on what you envision your legacy. I know your legacy involves your leadership comes from your dad and from the military background, but talk about your legacy going forward, Jay, because you've got an awesome vision. I don't know, you've shared it with me personally. I think
Yeah.
you even shared it on your live last week, but share that legacy that you want to create.
Yeah, so let me kind of set this up, because before I say what it is, I want people to understand that this legacy is not about, it's not about like an ego thing or a me thing. This is about what this represents. And you got to kind of think about what I was talking about earlier with promoting people and helping people and having that impact of what people remember. So the overarching vision of my life, and it's really just one life goal, and everything flows from that, Brad, is that when I'm dead, or when I'm no longer on this earth and they have my funeral, I want the funeral to be so large they can't find a church in Omaha, Nebraska to have it in. And, because then I will have been a good steward of my time and the gifts that God gave me, because I would have impacted that many lives. And that's really what it's about. It's about impact, and it's about leaving a legacy to where my time here meant something and that I impacted others in a very positive way.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I know. I hope I don't. There's not really a right way to say it, but if I'm here and you're not, I'll be there, brother. I promise you that. The
Appreciate
impact you've
that.
made on me in just a year and a half has been incredible. And again, I know you do that on others. Let's talk about this, Jason, because you're a guy that understands this with that impact. How important, we talk about this in incentive travel all the time and incentive programs that we do. Talk about how important it is, especially in the C-store industry, to appreciate your employees, reward them, and recognize them for the work that they've done.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I think you talk about this all the time, and um, you could give someone $100 bonus or a prize, right? Most of the time, that $100 is just going to get kind of swept up into their everyday spending. They may take their spouse to dinner. They may make an extra trip by the Burger King or whatever. But realistically, it just becomes a little bit of extra discretionary cash, right? Now, flip that around. Maybe $100 is a good example. Let's just say $1,000 or $2,000. But let's say you handed someone a ticket to the AFC Championship game at Arrowhead,
Mm-hmm.
and 2 nights stay at the Marriott across the street, right? That person's never going to forget that experience. You can't take that from them ever,
Yeah.
even once it's done and gone, right? And so I really admire your way of thinking through the incentive travel, Brad. And I think that more companies need to really consider what's important. And incentive, if you look at the incentive travel and the companies that do employ it and do it well, they really do drive results using it. But the importance of, you kind of asked about the importance of that with the team. I will tell you that it's kind of interesting because with my team, I think, as bad as it sounds, I think some of the most valuable movement that I've ever gotten is just from saying, please, thank you, I see you, how you
Mm,
doing, how's your mom, how's your baby, all those things that I do on a daily basis. um, it's that appreciation for their efforts on a day in, day out basis. Now, don't get me wrong, I love to take it to that next level, and find ways to give back. But it all starts with, I guess what I'm trying to say is, you can have the best incentive travel plan on the planet. If you fail to do the day-to-day appreciation, it don't matter.
that's right.
So incentive travel is extremely powerful when coupled with day-to-day caring about your team, showing up for your team, and picking them up when they're down. One of the things that we like to do is, when we have people that are struggling or whatever, we get them arranged with someone they can talk to. We've had, you can imagine, with having 1,000+ employees, 2,000 employees, that things happen. We've had home fires, we've had, death, we've had, I mean, if you name it, I have faced it. Okay. And I will tell you that the look on people's faces when you go, look, I'm not a professional. I'm here for you. Obviously, if you want to talk, you can call me day or night, but let me get you with someone who really knows how to walk through this. And the look on people's faces that you're going to do that for me. And it's such a simple gesture, but so powerful. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. The hardest thing for people to do is to be able to ask for help. We for some reason just don't want to ever let our guard down and ask for help. And when you provide that help, it becomes so powerful, right?
Yeah, especially when you don't make them ask for it. So when you offer it, and then it becomes that they're not putting you out, or it's kind of like a raise, right? No one likes to have to go and ask for a raise. The best raises are the ones where they come and say, you know what, Brad, you've been killing it, so we're going to give you $1 raise.
Yeah.
Don't think about it. And that's another thing I want to touch on, because I think it's important. I can't stress to the audience and to everybody out there, recognize your people, keep track of when their anniversary dates are,
Mm,
be ready, have those discussions with them before, because I will tell you that nothing says I see and appreciate you more than saying, hey, Brad, your 1 year anniversary is next week. I'd like to set up a time to sit down and talk to you, and talk to you about your job performance and your raise. Because then you're thinking, wow, okay, like, that's you just, it's so much more powerful than if you have to say, hey, boss, I hit my 2 weeks, or I hit my 1 year 2 weeks ago. When are we going to sit down and talk? Because
yeah.
even though you could do it right and it's still good, it's not as powerful as if you bring it up and you lead the charge.
Sure, absolutely, yeah, and recognizing, people love to be recognized by name. They love their family to be recognized by name. Just those simple things of asking, how is your spouse doing? How are your kids doing? Is everything okay at home? And that's part of the intentionality that we talk about too in the bucket list life plan. You're one of the most intentional guys I know. We had a very good conversation on the phone a couple of weeks ago talking about some of your purpose and your intentionality. Talk about how that's going and what your challenge is that you're facing, the task that you're knocking out. You're knocking it out of the park so far, you've told me.
Yeah. So first of all, I want to thank you for that conversation. So I just felt very moved to call you. I was down in Houston visiting stores, and I thought, I've got all this going on in my head, and I need someone that gets it to talk to. And you were the first person I talked to, and said, hey, you got time? You're like, yeah, call me right now, anytime for you. And I walked through. I'm like, man, I really feel I'm supposed to write this book, and I really feel that, like, while my role within the C store operation has presented a lot of opportunities, I said I'm at that kind of a turning point where I feel like it's time for me to do even more and on a larger platform. And you very quickly said, you congratulations, you've just found your purpose. And I thought about that long and hard that day, because I had about a 45-minute ride from the store back to the hotel. And all I could think about was, as someone who's a believer, I thought it was almost, I'll be honest with you, I really felt God speaking through you. And And ever since that day, I've been writing on a daily basis, making sure I hit my content on LinkedIn. And even on days, there's some days, I'll be honest with you, for all those of you watching or listening on LinkedIn, the struggle. Like there's days where you write a piece of content or you put a piece of content out there that you think is just awesome. It's got a great message. And you look and you're like, man, I got 300 views and 12 likes and 2 comments. And you're like, what the heck? You're like, where did everybody go? And then you'll write another piece of content that you think is just, I don't know, okay, or just you're just sharing something kind of out there. And next thing you know, you got 4,000 views and 100 likes. And you're like, sometimes the LinkedIn world doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But what I've come to appreciate or to realize is that if you approach every piece of content you send out as if it makes a difference in one person and one person only's life, then it was worth doing. It makes doing it a lot easier.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
then you quit second guessing yourself.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that conversation we had when I was in Houston, and I think it really has been, coupled with working through the executive coach I have, has been really spurring of me through this year to really live, to go for it. Just don't look back, just go for it.
Absolutely. Taking action. Action produces the greatest action, right? We talk about that all the time too, but the intentionality is the bottom line of it. To be out there, and you mentioned LinkedIn posting, or, if you're a content creator and you're listening, or even if you're not and you're listening and you're wondering, how in the world do I get online and post? That's not really me. Or how do I start a podcast or whatever it might be, right? The greatest thing you can do is to just take the action and do it. Don't worry about the metrics. The metrics don't matter. What matters is the action you take and the results that will follow.
Yeah, I posted yesterday. I actually posted yesterday, Brad, about that. Just start. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just start. Don't worry about what could go wrong. Just start. And I will tell everybody out there that 2 years ago, when I really started kind of really getting into starting on LinkedIn, I remember thinking, no one's ever going to care about what Jason Ricks has to say. And here I am with Brad on your podcast. I've got 2 or 3 other podcasts I'll be doing over the next, month. And, that to me, even a year ago was like, that'll never happen, So it's the power of what can happen if you believe and you put yourself out there. Because I can tell you right now, for every creator that's out there, we need about 10 more. It's just the lack. There is a lack of really good content and from different perspectives. So don't be afraid. If you've ever thought about doing it, go for it. You got it.
Absolutely. And you talk about a year ago, a lot of people know my story. Just over a year ago, I sat in the same shoes. What in the world am I going to do? Travel is gone. I just had taken on coaching. What in the world? I'm not a podcaster. And boom, here we are, episode 27 today.
That's
Amazing.
great.
I can't even believe it myself. And I say that humbly, but it's a great transition, Jay, because you started just a few weeks ago your podcast through LinkedIn Live, a cool platform, awesome way to be able to start that. And of course, be able to record the content and put it into a podcast. Talk about purposeful living, your podcast.
Yeah. So let's go back to where that started. So it kind of started with the Takeoff Friday. So for those of you that don't know, I do this thing every Friday where I go back and I literally take the time to look at every post and everything that I've done, and anyone who's commented or that I've talked to on the phone or, really interacted with me in a real way. I give them a shout out on Friday. And usually I pick somebody who really had a significant effect that week, and I share that. So I started this thing, and I'll tell you, it was amazing because people just love it. They absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And it goes back to you talking about, words of affirmation and recognizing people, right?
Yep.
So I started thinking about, like, I wanted to do this podcast. I did one show that will be part of the podcast that was not part of this new concept that I filmed on Zoom with a guy, and it'll be a bonus episode on the podcast. But what I was running into was I needed someone to help edit, and the guy kind of flaked on me. And so I said, you know what? I could do this LinkedIn live thing if I can get approved. Now I'm going to be very honest with you. When I applied for LinkedIn Live, I thought, hell no, it'll take them 6 months, 8 months. I'll start now so they'll know I'm serious, right? I apply, it's over the Christmas holidays, and I'll be doggone if the 23rd, 24th, something like that. I remember I posted on LinkedIn the day that I got the notice from them, but they they uh, they approved me for LinkedIn Live, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, it was awesome. It's a great platform, and you've got several episodes I know planned. Talk about who you're looking forward to have on the show, who you've got scheduled already, and what is the podcast about?
Yeah, this week we'll have on John Anderson, who actually was one of your guests recently,
Yeah,
and he's going to talk about what it means to live as a franchise, and how people can find their purpose and ownership through franchising. Um, the week after that, I've got Mister Yellow Suit, Mister our man
Jesse Cole.
Jesse Cole from the Savannah Bananas. I'm so pumped about that. And we've got several other folks that are lined up for the show beyond that. I would just encourage anybody that's seen this or whatever that would be interested in coming on with a perspective of how to live a more purposeful life. Reach out to me via LinkedIn. But I have a goal, so I'll share this with everybody because I believe if you speak it, it has a way of coming true, right?
Absolutely.
So for those of you who know who Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V is, most of his fans know his favorite number is 5. So my goal is that I will have Gary on for my 55th show. So that would be, middle to end of January next year for the 55 show. That's my goal. And so what I'm going to do to try to make this come to fruition is every week for the next 55 weeks, I'm going to ask on Facebook, Instagram, every channel that I can think of how to ask, I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask consistently every week for 55 weeks in hopes that I can pull this off. So I just have a feeling that the LinkedIn universe and the Lord is going to come through, and I just believe it's going to happen.
That's awesome. I hope he can find the time to do it because if they're listening today, I know there's a subscriber to this show, Jason, Bucket List Living with Brad Norwood. There is a subscriber that has a connection to Gary V. And so without naming them, subscriber, you know who you are. My man Jason wants episode 55 of Purposeful Living to be with Gary V. Let's make it happen. I'll make the phone call behind the scenes. Hopefully he can make the time to be on episode 55 with your Purposeful Living. Jason, that wraps up about the time we have for today. Man,
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for your time to be able to come and join the show. As always, thank you for your friendship and the time that we spend on the phone together. But I've got to ask you, just like I ask every guest, we ask every guest either, are you being intentional or what are you challenging yourself with? So I want to ask you, what are you challenging yourself with today or this week?
Yeah. So the biggest challenge I have for myself is consistency. So continuing to do the things day in and day out that are going to help me achieve all those goals that I've set for. So continuing to write, continuing to reach out, continuing to connect, and continuing to post and to create content. It's that
That
simple.
that's awesome. That's awesome. Stay the plan, work the plan, see the plan happen, man. I love it. Thanks again for joining. Hey, look, if you're watching, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel. DreamIT Professional Events with Brad Norwood. You can also, don't forget to go find Jason Ricks now. He's on LinkedIn. Connect with him. We'll put all of his information in the show notes. And until next time, remember that a bucket list life is a life worth living. Have a great day.